like we talked about in the lecture, uh, this is a GPS shield, but they don't come with the leads soldered in. And in fact, you guys probably just have this and then some breakaway leads or some through hole leads. So one of the things that you're going to have to do is solder these header pins in. So there's potentially two types of header pins that you could have. You could either have these stackable ones that have the pins that go through, but they also have the header pin on top. But I believe what they actually come with is just these breakaway pins that don't have the one on top. And the disadvantage of this is, so with the header pins, I can then put another shield on top. There's a connection all the way through, and I can just stack these like that, right? Whereas if this one is on top, I'm not going to be able to get anything on top of that. So also, there is a bit of a trick in soldering these pins in, these header pins in. So one thing is that if I was to put, and I purposely didn't solder this last one in, this has got some wiggle to it, right? And if I have wiggle on all of these and I just pop them in there and I solder it in, I may not have a real good alignment with, so the holes may not line up with the top of my Arduino. So the way I recommend doing this is basically you put all of your header pins in, and then you sort of lightly, and then you get your Arduino and you sort of get all of the pins in the appropriate holes, but don't push it all the way down. And what that's going to do is it's going to line up all of these header pins, but I want a gap. And what you're going to do is you're going to get your soldering iron and your solder, and you want to just go in, and you're not going to do all of the pins like this, but the point is basically to get each one of the pins, or a pin on each one of the each one of these sets of header pins, and just get a little bead of solder on it while it's sitting in that Arduino. And what that's going to do for you is basically, once you get that little bit of solder in there, it's not going to be able to wiggle around, and then it's going to hold it in a lined up position. So if you look at these, these are mostly pretty lined up straight with each other, which is going to make it easier for getting that thing in and out of the Arduino. Another thing to watch out for is these stackable header pins come in different lengths. And I purposely picked ones that are different lengths because that's bad. But if if this is what you have, what you can do is, once you've soldered this in, you can then just trim the extra length off of these longer pins with your diagonal cutters to match the other ones. But basically the idea is, once you get a single pin on each one of these headers to kind of hold it in position, I'm then going to go in with the shield just free without the Arduino in there, and then just go in and solder the rest of the pins And this is a lot easier because you're not trying to squeeze in there. The only thing you want to watch out for is don't put so much solder. So these are somewhat close together. So you have to be careful to not put so much solder that you bridge from pin to pin. So you're all going to need to do that. And then the other thing that you want to do is make that jumper that I talked about for the software serial. So if we zoom in on that particular region, you can see that we have this little right angle header pin that can be useful. So if you have like a jumper with this like crimped type, that can be nice because then I can just make this and I can make a little removable connection. But if you don't have access to that, what I recommend is basically if you take a solid core wire, like you've probably been using for your breadboard jumpers. So just solder the wire directly into these TX and RX pins. And then, make the leads long enough that you can get to from your TX and RX here to the rest of your serial port connections, which are all down here on the Mega. If you have different color wire, I recommend using a different color wire for the transmit and receive lines. One of the most common reasons that this thing of having trouble with the GPS is basically you have transmit connected to transmit and receive connected to receive. And just having two different color wires like here makes it easier to be able to see which one's connected to which.